Well, 2014 has been a pretty good year for travel for me, so here's a little rundown. First of all, there was Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia. This is not just small in comparison to other European cities. Its centre is so diminutive that seeing everything worth seeing doesn't take much of an effort walking. Its baroque facades and cobbled streets make it the perfect destination for an easy, culturally filled stroll in the hot summer sun, and the views from the castle are pretty stunning. Then there was a big trip through Croatia. Firstly, there was Rovinj, a small, gorgeous little marina town with a definite Venetian feel. Pula was the main town in the area, with its stunning Roman arena dominating the modern coastal town. It was probably my favourite part of the country. Fažana was more like a village, but nice enough. Then came Rijeka, an industrial city that still exuded a certain charm without necessarily any of the beauty. It was still a lovely place to be, and the views from the castle on the hill were pretty stunning too. Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, was just as one would expect from a capital, with the biggest of pretty much everything I had seen in the country so far. I got to watch Croatia's first match in the World Cup and bathed in the atmosphere of their joy at taking the lead against Brazil and their anger at the shoddy referee. There was no mistake in Zagreb for anything other than the most important city in the country so far. Next up was Sarajevo in Bosnia. It had a distinct Ottoman Turkish feel and looked nothing like the war zone most people think it is. It's very modern, both in people's attitudes and in current development, but it still has a certain run-down grey feel to it. Back in Croatia, I headed to Dubrovnik, the classic destination for the average tourist. This medieval walled city has been a favourite since the 19th century and, despite heavy bombing in the Civil War, has still retained its beauty as if not one shell had landed on the streets. It's a tourist trap for sure, but that's the price you pay for visiting a place so spectacular. It was worth the crowds. A short bus ride took me to Budva in Montenegro, which, wonderfully, is a tiny version of Dubrovnik and a hell of a lot quieter. It may have a sizable marina, but it's still ready for a real discovery. And then there was Podgorica, probably the most run-down city I've ever visited. It was a bit of a shock when I first arrived, but it wasn't so bad either. I had to remind myself that the country has only 650,000 people, so the capital isn't so big or so full of attractions, but it was worth the long bus ride. A few months later I headed to Reykjavik in Iceland with a friend. It was cold and windy and everything was very expensive, but it lived up to its billing. Most noteworthy of the sights were the Hofdi and the Penis Museum, while the puffin and whale tasted pretty damn good, but the shark was awful. And finally there was Zurich and Vaduz. Zurich was pretty much like any other Central European city I've been to so far. But it was pretty and interesting, with plenty to see and do, so long as one is willing to spend. There was nothing stand out about it, but it can't be sniffed at either. Vaduz, the capital of the Principality of Liechtenstein, was like a village with a few big buildings and an impressive castle, with a very interesting national museum and a very dull art gallery. It took barely a morning to see what I needed to. Well, that's it for my travels this year. Planning for next year has already begun, so see you on the other side.